I just want to do a welcome prayer. Or welcome acknowledgement, feed a little positive energy in this room. True language, first language, great nation. Tumpus, Keisha, Weavy, Mac, what, KL, Keep Tumpakat, Quiniano, Wichini, the Botney, the Way, Liz Nisa, the Shebe, Kawi, Moody, Bosi, the Body, the Bate, I hope.
Worcester is at a time of great development, and we're fortunate that our city is now getting recognized for how awesome and amazing we really know it to be. But with development, also, some of these projects that have been coming in don't necessarily benefit the entire community and really don't hear the voices from the community. The Worcester Community Labor Coalition really wants to work to address these issues, both within the unions and the workers, as well as in the communities and the families in the neighborhoods that are being developed right now.
That's why we're here. We're here to give us a voice at the table. In order to do that, we have to come together. We have to take those ideas, narrow them down, put them into a funnel, and come up with some priorities where we can go to the developer and the stakeholders that are leading this development and say, hey, let's improve the quality of life of people here. Community benefits agreement, I just became knowledgeable about that term about 3 years ago, and I had a chance to do some research on different models of development, and it seems to be a mechanism that includes the people in terms of letting them have a voice at the table in regards to grassroots, ground-up approach to development.
This is your neighborhood, this is our neighborhood, and so we have a say in what's going to be done and what's going to happen, because this is where your lives are, this is where our lives are, so we have to have a say on what's happening here. We, the YWCA, a women's organization, just historically signed the first community benefits agreement here in the city of Worcester and in the central area. Okay? One of the reasons we did that is to ensure, because our mission is the elimination of racism and the empowerment of women and dignity for all people. So we want to make sure that when these jobs, it's a $24 million community benefits agreement renovation, we want to ensure that the money that is being put into that stays in Worcester. We want to ensure that we are paying, it's all an all-union job. All union, which means a living wage for the people who are going to work on this project. That means the money stays here, it goes back into our communities, and if we can do it, this little organization, why can't the city of Worcester do it?
The main goal. There's 6 overall, which is responsible construction, no wage theft, workforce equity guidelines, so the hiring of women and people of color, and where the contractors will report who's on the job, are we meeting our goals, aren't we meeting our goals, and it's a public process, good jobs and racial equity, and this has to do more with on the permanent side of the jobs that are going to be created. Neighborhood stability and permanent affordable housing. Homelessness is a huge issue. It's an intractable issue at the moment for the United States of America. But right now, this project is going to impact a certain radius, and it's going to impact the population of homeless people. And we can't just pretend it's not going to happen. How are we going to deal with it? We want to understand, what's the city's response, what's the developer thinks, what does the Red Sox think, and what do we want? And so that's been going well. And then we have the environmental justice, and then of course, local supplies. We have a lot of homegrown businesses here in the city of Worcester, probably taking us 7 months for the coalition to come to a consensus. And then purposely, that coalition voted on this group to represent as the negotiating committee. And we have had 2 pretty serious meetings, and they've been productive.
And literally about a year ago today, we had our first huge victory, which is the Do Better bill, which is now the Do Better law. One of the things our coalition wanted to really push was transparency and how public dollars are being spent around the city of Nashville. From a lot of things I've read, and Worcester, you're having the exact same issues there. We signed our CBA on Labor Day at midnight. So it's a lot of hard work. When you do finally have that committee that does meet and sit down with the ownership group, what you want, you're probably going to want to get an MOU. And I think that was our first big thing that we tried to get. And if you don't know, an MOU is a memorandum of understanding, and that sets the process of even how you go into the negotiations of talking about all those things that you guys want in the CBA.
And it clearly shows the intent of both parties to come out with the CBA, and ours had an ending date on it, that both parties commit to work in good faith for the next 4 months or whatever, with the intent to have a community benefits agreement by this date. And so that really held both parties accountable.
Yeah, and once you get that MOU, go parade it around, like show it around town, so that now the community has an expectation of this is what the ownership group is going to live up to.
The choke point that we were able to enter into that gave us leverage was that there was a vote to bring the team to Nashville that passed, so it was going to happen. But there were still 2 more votes that had to happen in council. One was around zoning, and one was around the demolition of some existing buildings that were on this public land. They're building it on public land, but it's being leased to the team for 99 years. So that gave us a clear entry into the public realm, where we can say this is public land. They took out public bonds to pay for the construction, all these details that I won't bore you with. But the council had to vote, and the demolition vote took 2/3, not just a simple majority, 2/3 on council had to pass it, which made it a difficult hurdle for the team to jump over.
We have 40 council members here in Nashville.
We kind of have a giant council, right? So 27 people had to vote for it. And one of the things that we did along this process, when you're doing a CBA, there are several kind of different tracks that you have to think about. One is educating council folks and getting them on your side. So what we did is we wrote, or one of our council folks drafted a letter from council to the developers that said, we're not going to vote on this project unless you guys have a community benefits agreement with Stand Up Nashville. And we got 31 council people to sign that. So it was well over the thresholds that would have basically killed the project.
And it was a good strategic move on our side, is because not only we had those 31 signed on, we had a press conference with it as well. Mm-hmm. So every news media was out there. We just had a story get released in the Nashville Scene, and then we just did the op-ed in the Tennessean, which is our major newspaper here as well. So when you are doing the CBA, you want to be strategic to make sure that you line up everything to go together. Right. Your reasoning for wanting this, your mistrust in how things are happening, and your expectations to raise, wanting them to raise, is valid. And when you talk to council people, when you go out and you talk to, and I hope that you're talking to influential people in the city, like pastors or church members or whoever it is that really has the eye or the attention of everyone else, and making sure that they understand that as well, because what you'll often find out is that they 100% agree with you. And eventually what will happen is, I don't know where your council sits right now. If you don't have support of them, you will have the support of them. Because I think we all can be very honest, what council people don't like is to lose votes. So use that as part of your leverage point. And you should use that. You have put them in a position to be responsible around the hard-earned dollars that you use, and you got to give up to taxes every day, right? So make them be accountable with it.
Is we had surveys, or pretty much on kind of like a note card sized card stock, that basically we went to every neighborhood association meeting that we could, every church meeting that we could, we went to just a ton of people and tried to hit as many small neighborhood organizations, community organizations as we could, to talk to them about the CBA, what the CBA means, what the process looks like. And the survey asked, these are my top 3 priorities on this project, right? and just, it was blank for folks to fill in whatever they wanted to fill in. And that also gave us, not only were we getting out and educating the community and having one-on-one conversations, we were able to go back to the table and say, look, 83% of the people that filled this out said that jobs was one of their top 3 priorities, right? It gave us a ton of credibility. Yeah. And when you can come back and say, we've literally talked to thousands of residents and this is what they want, you have the proof to back that up.
One thing you have to do if you're going to enter into try to get a CBA is that you have to what are your non-negotiable things, right? Like, what are the things that we have to have this and we're not going to negotiate whatsoever on these points? And the reason why I say that is because you have to be willing to lose if you don't get those things.
Right.
But also understand there's still wins that come out of that. I think the CBA has changed the narrative in Nashville, right? A lot of people now focus more on what it is that council members are doing. Several of the boards that we have, and I'm sure that you have in Worcester as well, who make decisions that bring developers to your city. You know, they kind of just go under the wraps. So those are wins within itself.
Is that our CBA sets up a community advisory committee that will oversee the implementation of the community benefits agreement that includes folks from our coalition, folks from the developers, and folks from the community, so that we can continue to monitor and make sure that this process is rolling out appropriately. And there are some reporting requirements that we negotiated in the CBA that the developer and the construction manager have to report things back to the community advisory committee on a quarterly basis.
It's really exciting. You guys have a really powerful room here. Just to see the numbers that you have, to me says, like, I can see this group of people in a very similar room with a group of decision makers here getting a signature on a dotted line. I want to start with just community benefits agreements are an opportunity, and they're an opportunity to organize more. They are the start to the fight, not the end of the fight. And I want to be crystal clear. A thing that I want to do this presentation for you to remember is that power is about clarity. And so many of the systems in our cities, so many of the systems in our politics are designed to confuse us and make us unclear about who has power, who has what power, and who motivates that power. And so you can run a community benefits campaign and be extremely successful, but you will save a lot of time if you figure out who has real power and who makes real decisions. This is a picture of the Chief Operating Officer of KeyBank signing a $16 billion community benefits agreement nationally. This was supposed to happen in Cleveland. We forced it to happen in Buffalo. This community benefits agreement was supposed to be national. We created a local subsection that is valued at $2.2 billion. So far, we've only received $140 million, but we are going to continue to fight. And so we did direct actions, we did rallies, we did protests. We brought people from our communities who were being foreclosed to the Federal Reserve, and we said, you cannot allow this bank to come in our community while they are foreclosing people because they can't pay $50, right? And what that did publicly was it changed the negotiating table. They offered to meet with us, we rejected their meeting until we could meet on our terms, on our turf, which is so important. When you're doing negotiations, there's a huge difference between you going to somebody and somebody coming to you. And you have to be willing to take the courage and do what's necessary to make them come to you because you have created tension that only you can resolve. Cities are businesses. Be very clear about it. They are businesses that use their right to tax, their ownership and right to zone and plan property in order to generate revenue. The easiest way to generate revenue is to tax people. But nobody gets elected by raising taxes. The easiest way to raise taxes is to raise property values. And that is why cities will mortgage their entire futures on projects like this stadium that will raise the property values in the downtown area that have a concentric effect on the market that literally displaces people. So they're going to drop a splash in the middle of your city that is designed to push everybody out. Because who is going to pay the taxes? The developers aren't paying taxes. They're getting $35 million. They're getting no taxes, right? And who has to build that gap? Is homeowners, is landlords, is you when you pay your sales tax every day on everything that you purchase. Analyze power, and you have to be clear about what your target wants, what they're afraid of, what they need, especially from government, and you have to stay strong about those principles. because they're gonna tell you, well, we can't do this and we can't do that. I don't know if that's feasible, and you have to say, not only do we know it's feasible, but we know that you need us. Again, who are your targets? Who are your allies? Who are your enemies? I've talked to a lot of people in this room, and no one is really clear on who the enemy is. And my theory is you use your enemies and you make them toxic to move them away from your targets to make them your allies. So if you don't have enemies, then you are not moving power. There is somebody out there that is going to benefit greatly from this. There is somebody out there that is licking their chops on how much money that they're not only going to make from this development, but from the developments that will be leveraged after that. Who is that person? Where are they? You need to find them and draw them out, because that person is the person you need to be negotiating with. That person is pulling all the strings of all the people in front of you, and if you start talking to all those people in front of you and not to that person, and not affecting their electability, their pockets, whatever they have, then you are not going to win a real community benefits agreement. What do they want? What does each person in this thing want? And how do you affect that? What do you want? Are you clear on what you actually want? Not what you think you can get, but what you want, what your community needs. Anybody who's ever been in a negotiation knows you don't ask for what you want. You ask for double, triple, quadruple that. You have to be tactical, right? So if you have a community benefits agreement that's exactly what you want, you've already lost, because you're gonna get watered down in negotiations. What is your leverage? In these development projects, planning, zoning, economic development, who are the boards? Who are the people that run these spaces? Because the truth is, your zoning board might be way important than your mayor, because they cannot build that building unless they have zoning approval. They have to go through some plan new development process that has plenty of leverage points in it for you to bring yourself and your people. So again, if you're sitting at a negotiating table and behind your back, their lawyers are at the planning board meeting, you are losing. So you need to understand power, and you need to understand how it works in your city. You need to say that we may not know every little detail of every little thing, but when we step to that table, we are coming for what we deserve, and we are forcing them to explain to us how what they're doing benefits us. You say you have 2,000 part-time jobs? Give me 2,000 part-time job descriptions, salaries, benefits packages. Do you have that? I don't think they do, because I don't think any baseball stadium is creating 2,000 jobs. How many people does it take to sell peanuts to 10,000 people? So the reality is you have to be crystal clear, and you have to force that clarity on them so that you can tell where you're really at in the negotiation. And once you know you're at, be willing to walk away and come back stronger. Thank you.